And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Darian Talks UTSA. Today, I am joined with Jared. Uh, Jared is the head man for Alamo Audible. I believe that's correct. And I'm sure he's been covering UTSA for how long? How long has it been?
I was at the first practice, man.
First practice. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as long as it's attention.
Yeah, as long as it's been. Excuse my crazy sweating. As you guys know, I like to work out before this, and I'm hot as hell right now. But anyway, um, thank you guys for populating the chat. We got a lot to get to today. And yeah, I typically just roll through these questions, and then we have a couple of topics that I want to hit. One of the things I want to hit, just to kind of kick it off, Jared, I want to get your take on just last year in general. What was the season like for you? And then, with Frank Harris leaving and some of the other guys leaving that were sort of part of that nucleus, right? Of, the guys who put up banners at UTSA, you know, could you assess the last, 6 to 8 months for me?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a strong 2023 season for UTSA. I mean, especially when you look at the off-season injury struggles that Frank Harris went through. The fact that they were even able to be competitive and kind of come down to that last week of having a chance to play for a conference championship was really impressive. I think you saw a lot of growth from the program, especially on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of young and new additions, stepped up and had key roles to play. Devin McEwen had a really nice freshman season. All of those running backs, Rocco Griffin, Kiborian Barnes continued to do his thing, and Robert Henry as well. Like, so those, like, a lot of nice surprises, I would say, across the team. And then looking ahead to 2024, I think it's just, the looming question that both of us are going to be talking about on our podcast for weeks and months to come is like, what does future look like for UTSA without Frank Harris, right? And until they go and show they can win double-digit games in a single season, I think it's going to just be this kind of shadow, right? That until they prove they can do it without Frank, it's just going to be the number one question that everyone asks. But overall, I mean, I think the team's in a really strong place. I've got pretty solid expectations for them. And also, it's the first time they haven't replaced a coordinator in many, many years. So some nice continuity there, even though some of those top players have, left the program.
Yeah. So there's based off of that, like one of the things I put in the article that I wrote earlier this week was sort of looking at the situation with the quarterback and just thinking about like, all right, is everything going to fall on the shoulders of whoever the starter is, right? And whenever I really start to look at like some of the acquisitions we got from the transfer portal, some of the guys just that we got coming in general, some of the guys that we got returning or potentially returning, um, I'm starting to feel like if we play this right, and if Coach Traylor is the offensive mind that I think he is, I'm starting to think that it's going to be more about the guys around the quarterback that can help support them and take some of that pressure off of them. Obviously, you got the three-headed monsters at running back that you mentioned before. We got some talent at receiver. We've seen some of the new guys like JJ Sparkman showcase his skills in the spring game. And if there's a lot of talk about the offensive line as well. How important do you think the guys around whoever the starting quarterback is? How important do you think they will be to our success this season?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that, assuming Owen McCollum's a starter, if it's Eddie, if it's a transfer, regardless, they're not going to ask that quarterback to do Frank Harris things in week one, right? That's unfair. And we saw that, even at the start of the bowl game, right? When Owen stepped in with Frank out, pretty vanilla offense. They weren't really looking downfield much. So I think you're going to see that, again, in out-of-conference play for the Roadrunners. But, just like you were saying, I think they're well-equipped, to be able to do a little bit more ground and pound than they've done in the past.
Yeah.
Outside of the three running backs that returned, they've got a great number of additions as well.
100%,
So
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to split all that, if any of those guys are planning to redshirt or not. But then the depth on the offensive line is really impressive too, right? They're going to have a lot of guys that, could start for a lot of Group of Five programs that are going to be on the second string, right? So even if a guy were to go down, and which always happens, right? There's never been a UTSA season where it's been 5 starters for all 12 games, right?
Right.
So I think they're going to have a lot of ability to get that consistent 4-yard, 5-yard pickup, and some home run threats as well. So I'm really hoping that's going to take a lot of the pressure off the quarterback and also cause defenses to adjust and, bring some guys down to the box. Kind of like we saw when Sister McCormick was at UTSA, right? People were not really respecting Frank's arm. they bring that safety down in the box, and then Frank had some easy connections. He would hit, JT or Cephas for 60-yard bombs and one-on-one coverage. So I expect to see a lot more of that offense for UTSA than what we've seen, maybe last year.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Though having a good and solid run game and a run game that makes defenses have to game plan for that. Them having to safeties having a position at 10 yards versus 12 yards makes a huge difference in the passing game. Especially if you got guys on the outside with speed that can take advantage of some of
No
those
doubt.
one-on-one opportunities, right? Um, one is there any particular player that you think that it's going to have a big impact next year that people that may not be on people's radar as much?
Kind of like a slept on
Yeah,
potential contributor.
yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I think on defense, I think one of those New Mexico transfers is going to have a
Mm,
really big year.
one of the
Whether
DBs, yeah,
that's the cornerback Zach
yeah.
Morris or the safety Jamarius Lewis,
Mm,
I think one of those guys will end up starting and having
mm,
a pretty nice, maybe like honorable mention all conference season. I think both those guys are pretty solid. Um, then on offense, I don't know. I've heard a lot about Houston Thomas and Patrick Overmeyer at tight end and their
yeah.
ability to stretch things out. So we'll see. Maybe Jamil Hardy has that breakout season.
Mm.
Like that wide receiver unit, it's wide open for someone to step up
Yeah, it
and,
is.
and kind of become like one of the go-to guys. He's super talented, right? So it
Right.
wouldn't shock me.
Yeah. I feel that. Let's roll into some of these questions. The first question we got from Eric Cabrera. He says, thoughts on the late running back addition from Gilmer. I'll pass that one to you first.
Yeah, is it Will Henderson? Is that his name?
Yes.
Think I should pull up the recruiting class. But my thoughts on that is that's why you always keep the scholarships open,
Right.
right? Like you see a lot of schools they fill up their class like really early, getting 60 commits
Right.
now in some
Yeah.
cases. But I think obviously the Gilmer connection. So UTSA knew about this guy. They knew that he was going to be available late. It sounded like he was a late qualifier, right?
Right.
So a lot of schools backed off or they filled that position, somewhere else in the class. And I think it's a huge win for UTSA. I mean, his speed alone is so rare. He'll probably be the fastest running back, I would guess. That's come
Oh,
through
of
this
course.
program. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, don't imagine him playing this year, especially with like the 7 running backs they have with
Right.
like Division One experience or whatever it is. But I think like 2 years from now, he's definitely gonna be a guy that's gonna be in rotation for sure.
You know what I think though about him? I actually do think it is a possibility that he plays this year in some capacity.
Hmm.
I don't mean like he's going to be one of the guys in the rotation, but anytime a team gets a player with that type of speed, they're going to try to put him on the field somewhere, whether that's a return man or bring him in on a jet sweep or something
Yeah,
like that. I do think whenever you bring someone who can roll a 10-100 into a program, they're going to find some sort of
yeah,
package
that's a
and
good point.
situation
Yeah,
that
and head coaches tend to not care about redshirting running backs
right.
that much. I
Yeah,
don't know what it is. It's
right.
just something I've noticed.
Yeah.
Because if you got good blocks and you got speed, you can take it to the house, right? So
Right.
yeah, it wouldn't shock me. It's just
Yeah.
they got so many guys to
Right.
spread carries around to.
Right. Mike says, other than the obvious, which is quarterback, I think finding that solid edge rusher to replace Trey Moore will be key. With an untested offense, I feel like the defense is going to have to keep us in games. I'll start on this one. Yeah, I agree 100%. I think obviously with some of the news as well that's come out that we'll get into in a little bit on that defensive line. Obviously, there's going to be opportunity for guys who's going to get a chance to go in and make a name for themselves, right? I think you look at Jamori Robinsons and guys like that can come in and really take things to the next level. So I think the defensive line and how defensive lines are in general with now you have to have 8 guys that you can rotate in and out. So there's going to be a lot of opportunity. We picked up a couple of guys in the portal that's going to come in and get an opportunity as well. So I think they will have to keep us in games, especially early in the year, until we figure out what we want, what our identity is going to be offensively. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with you on Jamori. It's all eyes on Jamori
Yeah.
Robinson. As far as I'm concerned, he needs to have the big season. And we had him on the pod recently, and he's locked in. He's really confident. He said that he wants to break Trey's record, and he did
Oh
not
wow.
scoff or grin or anything. He was very serious about that. So I love the confidence. But I think there's some guys that have the ability to really get after the passer as well. Like it's easy to forget, but Inyanwamu, I think is how you pronounce his
Yeah,
name.
yeah,
He had a sack or two last year before he
yeah.
tore his ACL. So I'm not sure like what his health status is if he's going to be good to go. But I think they've got a lot of guys that had the potential to get in the backfield. And I think also some of those interior linebackers are, Jamal Ligon has shown that he
Molly.
can get it back there. Blackshire, the Texas transfer, that guy's a tank, right? He's going to get
Yeah,
right through the line. But I think early in the season, it's going to be maybe a bit of a challenge to do like a lot of like, linebacker stunts and stuff like that.
right.
So I definitely agree in the early season, they're really going to need someone to step up because the defense may not be ready to put in, exotic blitz packages and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%, especially when you think about how many new guys are going to be ushering into the secondary. I think,
Yeah.
you know, they're going to probably be in more conservative coverages than aggressive, at least, starting out in the
Hmm.
season. And until they give some comfortability to understand what their secondary is going to hold up like, yeah, it'll probably be a couple games where we see some real stunts and guys get an opportunity to really peel their ears back. So, yeah, we'll see. Let's see. Kermit says, "How do you think the off the field issues will affect recruiting?"
Hmm.
I'll kick that one to you first.
I wouldn't expect it to have much of an impact. I think stuff like this does happen pretty often for a lot of
Yeah,
programs. I think it's a bigger deal for us as fans and maybe for opposing fans than recruits.
yeah,
The recruits have been in locker rooms. They know what they know what goes down, right? So
yeah,
I don't think it's going to be any shock to any recruits.
yeah. I tell people all the time that like when stuff like this comes to light, like obviously the things that come to light are the things that people get caught for, right?
Yeah,
But the
it's the
vast
difference between the
majority,
two.
yeah, the vast majority of things never see the light of
Yeah,
day.
yeah,
So for anyone who has ever been really close to a football locker room or any type of athletic locker room, you understand how people take these things. Now, don't get me wrong, there can be situations where things can be divisive and they can impact the team, especially if there's like some sort of a rift. But recruiting, I don't know how much it will impact recruiting, to be honest.
if it was something that's been going on for 6 months or a year or something like that, and
Right,
just like a
right, right.
string of guys getting popped, yeah, maybe, but I think it's kind of a one-off.
Yeah, and I think Coach Traylor has built up enough equity to, you know, fend off people who think he may not be able to create a great culture, which he obviously has. So we'll see. Anthony says, agree on our defense needing to play solid to keep us in games without knowing how our QB play will be. Okay, he's just saying he agrees. Shout out to Anthony here. Let's see. This one's directly for you. Does Jared think we land any of the CB recruits we recently had on campus? If so, who and or any other recruits, I'm sorry, that we might be the top contenders for 2024 for the 2024 year?
Yeah, so first off, the JUCO guy that was on campus recently, I do think will sign with UTSA.
Oh, nice.
I'm going on birdsup.com to get that name.
Okay.
Uh, oh man, I completely forgot. But yeah, he was another JUCO corner. I could see him landing at UTSA, but outside of that, I'm not sure.
Sounds good. Let's see. ATX says most important position this season will be the O line. Without them, the running game will be less effective, and the new quarterback will need more time in the pocket than Harris did. On dropbacks, yeah, but I would imagine they're going to get the ball out of their QB's hands pretty quick.
Yeah,
Um, I
and
don't, I
and
don't, I don't foresee much complexity until later in the season, until we're starting to make defenses respect some aspect of our game.
yeah, I mean,
Um,
thinking back to the bowl game, I don't know how many times Owen threw the ball deeper than 15 yards
right,
downfield. Right, they were getting
right,
out quick, and that's his strength too. When he first came in against Tennessee, that's what stood out
yeah,
immediately, just like how quick he is to distribute the ball. Right, it's just like one read, open, go. If not, check down, and then he just keeps it rolling. He's not dancing in the pocket, getting big eyes or anything like that. So. I think they'll be okay there. I don't think it's really their style to have the offensive line try to hold up for 4, 5, 6 seconds.
right.
But on the running game aspect, that's something I've kind of been debating with myself internally. Like, am I discounting too much of them having to replace the offensive tackles? Because I think
Mhm.
like they've got a ton of talent, right?
Yeah,
But there's plenty of times where it looks like you've got a guy that's going to be a really good starting tackle, and they just like I don't know if they're soft or what,
right.
but That is something I've been wondering about, like how that's going to translate over into the run game. A guy like Jonah Miller is massive, right? But can he be like that road grader that they're probably going to need for the season? We'll have to see how
Yeah,
that plays out.
that's a good point because I did not think they didn't block the run well in the spring game at all to me. And I know it's just a spring game, but to me, I feel like the defensive line got the best of them
Yeah,
whenever they did call runs. Um, just I want to follow up on this point with just a sort of a general question about the quarterback position from your perspective. From what you've seen, who would you be more comfortable with starting game one?
yeah,
Owen,
Owen for sure for me. I
Owen.
mean,
Okay.
his grasp of the offense and the ability to just be crisp in the passing game is has been really important to me. And the fact that he let it come back in the bowl game against a really solid defense, I think earned a lot of points for him as well. So I've always been a fan of Eddie Marburger, and I think if he's in the
Yeah.
spot, he'll do well. He's shown some good stuff. I thought he played well in that Army game that he started, but
Yeah.
right now, if I had to make a pick, it would be Owen for sure.
Right. Yeah. I don't.
Let's not forget he started 4 games at Colorado as a true freshman too.
Right.
I mean, that's not
Right.
nothing.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know which I go back and forth because all, I think this is just my personal thought. I think that Marburger he's someone I think can make every pass. He has a big arm.
He's got more arm
He
talent, I
has
would say.
yeah, that's what I was going to say. He has arm talent that I think is special,
Hmm.
and for that reason, I think his ceiling can be a bit higher. Now, I don't know how much of a playmaker he's going to be. We're going to definitely need someone who can extend plays and do things like that. And I think McCown has shown that ability to
Hmm.
do that. But I I don't know. I'm still torn. I'm just like deadlocked in the middle. I don't like that there has been not much separation in camp from what I've heard.
Yeah.
Um, that kind of concerns me a little bit, which is why I was hoping that they brought someone in, which we did, but we brought him in at a time to where it's like, how much can he do with a summer,
Hmm.
right? He didn't even get to participate in the spring, so he's going to be a step behind those guys, which gives him virtually no chance to go win a job
Right.
in camp, right? Because he's only going to get a couple weeks to actually show his stuff, and then his game plan for Kennesaw State. So, yeah, let's see. All right, 2 players arrested. Okay. Any comments on what is your take on this? I know a lot of people have been like asking for us to talk about this in particular. What are your overall just thoughts on, Booker Brown and what's our other guy name who just
I
got
think
caught
Corey
up in?
Lucius was the
Yeah,
other.
Corey Lucius.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
What's your overall take on this situation?
It's so hard to like really speak on it a lot because there's so many unknowns. Like I've been trying to piece together the timeline. It feels weird, right? Like the crime was in February,
Yeah,
and then they're on campus. They're like at camp, and then evidently there's warrants out for their arrest. But it sounds like the
yeah,
warrants were only issued a couple weeks ago. But
mhm,
like in the state of Texas, you don't have to inform someone that there's a warrant out for their
right,
arrest,
yeah,
right? Which was interesting for me to learn. So I'm like, did these guys know that they were under investigation? Did they know there was a warrant out? And did they not tell, the coach and administration? Like, that's really important information to
yeah,
have. But I think UTSA has done the right thing, right? Of just suspend the players and leave it at that, let the process play out and see where it goes. But I don't know. It's not a good look, and I think at both positions, UTSA can move on pretty quickly. Like Nick
yeah,
Burke Brown's a great player for sure, but that's really really deep position
yeah,
unit for UTSA, right? So
yeah,
I don't think that they did do anything that they'd be uncomfortable with, from a culture standpoint, to keep around a guy that there may be questions about. You know what I mean?
right. Yeah, it's a tricky one for me to answer because I have heard some things about the situation. I can't share necessarily directly because you know how it is. There's a rumor mill, and one person says one thing, and then the other person says something, and it's like it's weird. Here's what I'll just say about it. Like I do agree that we're deep in those positions, so it's just like from an on the field standpoint, I don't know. Booker Brown is pretty good, but like I, I don't know if it hurts us that much. I will say this based on the little that I do know about the situation is anytime there's things like this that happens, and I sort of hinted at it before, you worry about conflict in the locker room because anytime there's a situation like this, it's never a situation where a guy's not with a player because football players really only hang with football players. And I just hope, I'll just say this, I just hope that nothing that happens out of this situation creates any sort of divisiveness within the team. I don't think that it will. I'm not hearing that it will, but anytime stuff happens, it could create judgment, and things like that. I can tell you right now, and it's a completely different situation. This wasn't necessarily someone getting in trouble with the law, but there was a fight right before our season, my senior year, and it divided our team. I think pretty significantly, if I'm just being completely honest. I won't say who it was for, who it was with, but at that particular time, there were like guys not talking to each other for weeks. Guys got removed from the team, removed from the locker room, and coaches even um, being upset with each other for a while. And it was a situation like fights happen all the time, right? In football, in locker rooms, in the practice, and things like that. But there are some situations that can happen that can create divisiveness. And anytime there's people getting in trouble and things like that, that's always a worry because of what happened my senior year. So anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, sometimes you gotta stamp stuff out, right? And you can't
Right,
let it fester in the locker room and all that.
right,
Yeah.
100%. Is Frankie Arthur signed yet?
Oh, that's a good question. There's not
Yeah,
been a press release yet, and typically they would do one if someone signed.
yeah, I don't
So I would
think
guess no,
so.
but
Yeah, yeah, agree. Um, I'll kick this one to you. He says, "What are some of McCown's strengths as a QB?"
yeah, I think first off his experience, right? Like I said that he had those 4 starts at Colorado, and playing in Power Five at the time environments on the road, and played pretty well. That was a really bad Colorado team
Yeah,
before Dion got there. Um, did not have much talent around him, much help. He was essentially playing with a G5 roster.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, what did Dion say? Like, he's running these guys off because he's bringing his Louis with him or whatever. Owen was playing with the non-Louis luggage.
yeah,
He was playing the
yeah.
Samsonite. So I think that experience has molded him, right? He's
Right.
been in the system for a little bit, so he should know the playbook pretty well. Like I mentioned earlier, he's just so quick to get the ball out, right? That's like
Yeah.
in the collegiate game, over time, I've learned to value that more than like someone being able to throw the ball 70 yards downfield,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
guys are going to get open just schematically. They can't cover
Yeah.
everybody. So if you can make those quick reads and get the ball out really quickly, think back like Eric Sosa, right? Like
Yeah.
Eric did not have a cannon by any means. There were a
No.
lot of throws that he just couldn't make,
Yep.
but he was so successful at this level because he knew the offense. He was crisp in his execution. He didn't turn the ball over. So I see a lot of those same kind of characteristics in Owen. Probably a bad decision on my part to compare any quarterback to Eric, setting some expectations there.
Yeah.
But no, I just think he's a really solid player. He's got a good football IQ, knows the system well. So I think he could be really successful.
Yeah. I like his strengths as well. I think to your point, getting the ball out quick is important. And then but I like his ability to improvise a little bit. I've
Yeah.
seen him do that. Him extend some plays, make some key plays on third downs using his legs and things like that in some of his cameos last year. And I think to me, that's one of the things that I've become to value a lot
Hmm.
on a college level is, hey, can this person, because people are going to mess up in college, right? Like
Right.
receivers are going to run the wrong routes a lot more than you'll see on the NFL, the professional level, and things like that. Um, you know, Tackles are going to blow assignments, guards are going to
Hmm.
get ran smooth through by a top defensive tackle sometimes. Like
Yep.
he's going to be able to like think quick on he's going to need to be able to think quick on his feet and move around, and that's something that I really think is important. And I don't know if Eddie Lee, and I could be tripping on this, but everybody keeps like my man here Kermit says Eddie Lee is a better runner, and I don't know if that's true.
Maybe straight
Um,
straight line, maybe, but I don't know if
okay,
he has the agility.
right, right,
Yeah.
right. That's more. Yeah, I think my guy Kermit just likes Eddie Lee, and I'm not mad at it. Zeke says, y'all don't think Warwick starts over Lewis at the strong safety spot.
That's a tough one for me. I mean,
Yeah.
I think his potential is higher than Lewis, but if you go back and you look at his history at Stanford, he was hurt all the time.
Yeah, I know.
Like when he was on the field, he was good. So he's kind of one of those guys. I mean, it's just like playing with house money essentially. If he's
Right.
healthy, he can contribute. It's going to elevate that defense to another level. But I'm not going to slot him in as an expected starter just because of his injury history.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, here's the way I see it, especially like just playing in the secondary, my career there. Like, it is, in my opinion, one of the most difficult positions to come in and like automatically make an impact in a new defense. I tell people all the time, and it's why I question some of these kids who say, "Well, you know what? I'm going to like go to another school. I'm gonna transfer out to another school." Like, I think about, I was talking about this with Cam Alexander leaving us, right? And I get it. There's money involved, and like there's more notoriety at some of these bigger schools. Like, I understand that, but what I tell people is, whenever you get into a program, it is so hard to be in a position to where you have a coordinator that believes in you. You're playing a defense that you can thrive in. You're playing coverages, and they're putting you in positions to succeed. It is so difficult to say, okay, I'm going to leave that and go somewhere else and try to mold my game into what this defensive philosophy is. I've seen a lot of guys come in and just, what, they can't grasp. They were good, at this other place, but they just can't grasp the concepts at this new place, especially at the DB position, because some teams are going to run more man, right? If you're a zone corner, you've got all your success playing zone. I mean, I'm simplifying it, but if you got all your success playing zone and you go to a school that's playing man, you may not play because you may look like dog shit
Mm-hmm.
in camp or in stuff like that. And you may not even get a starting spot. So specifically for those positions, I'm just gonna wait, and wait and see who they roll out there, and hope that those guys are gonna be able to contribute. And it kind of goes back to another thing that I've been saying too. We're getting a lot of these guys from these Power 5 schools, and what I'm trying to tell folks is like, just because they came from these places doesn't guarantee them a starting spot at UTSA.
It doesn't even
Num-
guarantee they're going to be a contributor. I mean, we've seen it
exactly,
a lot throughout history at
exactly.
UTSA. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think for some folks, it is a tough thing, a tough concept to grasp because, you know, and I get it. Everyone still sees UTSA as the like little engine that could, right? But like we are starting to, be that engine that actually did now,
Mm-hmm.
right? So like guys are not just walking into our team and are just going to guarantee a spot. I don't know if it works like that anymore, but yeah. Next one says, I think Jamori Robinson will replace Trey Moore's position. I sure hope so. I sure hope so. This
He
one's
did in the
direct.
he did in the bowl game.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Listen, that dude is a engine, bro. He's like
He looks
big
the
dude.
part, man, no doubt.
Yeah, great size. This was directly for you. ACX says, Jared, do you buy all the hype that Texas State is getting on social media? GJ Kenny has been responding to all of the Twitter posts with the
I think it's rat poison.
rat poison. Yeah,
Yeah, the old Lane Kiffin.
yeah,
First off, I mean, GJ, you need your own bit, man. You need to come up with something more Texan than the rat poison thing that Lane did. But no, I'm pretty high on Texas State, man. They bring back a good amount. I think people are discounting the losses that they had on the offensive line because
yeah.
a big reason why they were so good last year is they brought like 2,000 combined starts all from Incarnate Word together on that offensive line together. Like 5-year starters that just came over and played an extra year for them at Texas State. And I think they keep some of those guys and lose half of them or something like that. So we'll see.
I think we lost JJ or Jared. All good. We'll roll with him when he gets back. Let's see. Texas State QB McLeod from James Madison is pretty legit. It'll be an interesting game, but I got the runners. Yeah, of course, we got the runners. Yeah, I mean, yeah, Texas State, kind of to his point, I think Texas State's going to be It's going to be a challenging game. They got a lot of good stuff going on. Okay, hold on. I think he's back. There he is.
Hey, yeah, I got kicked. Sorry about that.
All good. All good.
But yeah, it looks like the next comment made the point that I was going to make is the James Madison transfer, McLeod. He's the real deal, man. He's
Yeah.
got excellent ball placement. I've seen some of his highlight reels. You know, he stays in there, takes contact, and threads it through the needle, right? So I've seen some people say they've upgraded to quarterback. I don't know. That's a big statement, but we'll see. But I think it's going to be a huge challenge of a game for sure, and I think maybe the most interesting on paper.
Yeah, I tell you this: if there was it's a perfect time. If Texas State's going to catch UTSA, it's the
If not
perfect
this year, then
recipe.
when? You know?
Yeah, it's the
Yeah.
perfect time for them, to be completely honest. We got Kennesaw State, who I think some I think Dave Campbell had them like coined as the worst FBS team. Coming into the season,
Yeah,
and
go check out the schedule from last year. Man, it was rough.
yeah.
Yeah,
So if they were going to slip up, or if we were going to slip up, it will be this year. But you know what? Here's what I'll say too. With anytime even though this McLeod is talented and he's really good, there is still an adjustment period that everyone has to go through at the beginning of the season, and he's not going to be excellent at every single pat, or every single check and call and read in his second game either. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Let's see. MBB is not If MBB is not allowed to return to the team, who do y'all think will step up and replace his production? I personally think there's just going to be a number of guys, man. Like defensive line, like I said before, you got 8 guys. Every D line needs to have 8 guys that can rotate in or out, maybe even more, to be completely honest. So yeah, it could be a plethora of guys, in my opinion.
yeah, it's a long list. I'd shout out Ronald Triplett. You know, he's a guy that's Kansas State transfer, been here for a while, has
Yeah.
played well in spurts. I think he can take the next step this year. And then the SMU transfer, what was his name?
Yeah.
Damian Wimberly.
Yep.
That guy, whoo man, SMU people had really good things to say about him,
Yeah.
right? So potentially higher ceiling than Nick Booker Brown, but Nick has all the experience in that defense. So
Right. Right. Got a couple from Twitter that I want to roll through. I'll read these out because I can't put these in the chat. Let's see. 210 Danny says, general question for the both of us. What are some of the challenges that y'all come across when putting together UTSA content for your respective podcasts? I'll let you go first.
yeah, it's a good one. For me, I think first and foremost is everyone always wants like guest on all the time, and I would love to do that, but it is so hard to schedule that stuff. Like even when people have made like a verbal commitment, like, oh yeah, I definitely want to come on the pod. I'm all about it. Anytime. They always want to say anytime.
Right.
And then you give them a time, and it turns out anytime is not true. So we have had so many people like bail last minute, ghost us, just never find a time that works. So that's something that's always really difficult, especially, like when you've got a full-time job and you've got a family and all that.
Right.
You have a certain number of hours you can dedicate to the podcast each week, and you're trying to juggle someone who also has all those other responsibilities on their side. And finding a time that works to sit down for an hour is really hard. And I don't think a lot of people like realize all the planning and all the complexity that can go into that.
Yeah, that's a good one, because there are some folks who I've been trying to have on the pod.
Yeah, I'm sure it's the same for you. So many times you're like, oh, you should have so and so. It's like, you don't think I've asked them 6 times?
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. Dude, they were asking me to get Frank on like for like 2 months straight, and him and I were talking, and we probably changed dates
Yeah.
5 or 6 times before we actually made it happen. So I agree with that. I would say from me though, and I think I've mitigated some of the issues I had with the rebrand and just the way that I'm doing my show now. For me, I like to bounce. I like to do things like this where it's like a lot of questions. I'm really big on interaction. So
Mhm.
I can do a pod by myself and basically talk to the camera alone. First off, people don't realize how difficult that
That
is.
is hard.
That
Yeah,
is
that is really
very,
hard.
very hard to do.
I can do it like 20, 30 minutes, maybe every
Yeah.
once in a while, but yeah.
Yeah. So like whenever Nick didn't come, Nick stopped doing the podcast. I tried some things with Glasgow and Aeneas, and it was okay, but I didn't feel like that was giving the audience the best experience. And so I started doing it on my own, and then like I was doing these long form podcasts, just talking to myself, no interaction. I was like, well, I need to interact with the folks, that the viewers. So I've mitigated that with this style. Um, so that has been helpful because it keeps fresh topics that people want to hear about on. I think, especially in the off season, it's very difficult to keep this stuff up.
Mhm.
During the season, it's easy because everybody wants to like they want a preview and then they want a preview recap, and that sort of thing. So, um, I don't know. Now it's not as difficult, but time is always an issue.
Yeah. Another thing
Uh,
for us is there's always debate across our listeners if they want longer podcasts or shorter
uh,
podcasts. And a lot of people are like, oh, I'll listen for a 2 or 3 hour podcast.
right.
Well, we've done that, and like I can see like the analytics of like how many
Yeah.
people listen to the end. They're
Yeah.
not listening. So finding that right balance can be hard too.
I agree with that. You know what though? I made a decision to like, and it was like the best thing I could have done. And like, yeah, I'm technically not doing as much podcast listener traffic as I was doing before because I went solely on YouTube. So it's not on Apple Podcasts. It's not, I'm
Mhm.
not, and I did that on purpose because I want people to be here and be present. Um, and honestly, that's took my mind off of trying to please everybody because I
Yeah.
was not able to do that before. So now I'm just like, this is what I like. This is what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, it's easier to find people on YouTube too.
Yeah,
Pop up in the algorithm.
right. Um, any news on JT Clark? I, I don't know. I don't know if he's gonna be able to play starting out. I
So
feel like they are signaling toward him playing early, at least. I don't know if that means game one. I don't know if that means game 3, 4, but it seems like he's gonna be healthy. But I don't know. Have you heard anything?
not a whole lot. I also think it's too early to tell, right?
Right,
Because like this time last year, I mean, it was looking like he was gonna be back, and then there was a setback.
right.
And I think as you know, as a former player, that stuff happens all the time. You're rehabbing and things are going good, and like one small thing throws you off. So I think we'll just have to circle back in August and see where things are at. It's been working out a bit, but we there's been setbacks before. So for me, kind of like I said earlier with Wyrick from Stanford, with the injury history, it's just like
Right.
if he's here and he can contribute, that's awesome. It's gonna make the team so much better. But you have to be prepared for someone else to step in that is going to be healthy and ready to go, which I think
Yeah.
is going to be JJ Sparkman for this team.
Yeah, I do too. I'm gonna wrap it up with these last two questions here. He says, who do y'all think will be the top 3 contributors in that wide receiver room?
That's a good question.
It's a great question. I'll kick it to you first.
Oh man, I'm gonna go Sparkman. That's
Yeah.
easy. I'm gonna go McEwen. I'm really split on this third though. I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna go DJ Allen, man. It's a risky
Wow.
pick, but dude,
Okay.
his high school film is crazy.
Wow.
So we'll see.
I agree with Sparkman, McEwen, are gonna be my top 2. I'm gonna go with JT Clark. It's a wild
Nice,
card,
man. Let's hope so.
but I think that if he's even 80, 70% of what he was before the injury, we got us one of the best receivers in the conference, hands down. You want to talk about it, and he's going to be an instant red zone threat.
Hmm.
You single him up, you can tell any quarterback to just throw up a jump ball, he'll go get it. So
Yep.
I don't know if he'll have the yardage that he might need, but I think from a touchdown standpoint, he'll do well.
Yeah, let's hope
Um,
so.
yeah, I do hope so. Okay. Last one. Well, you know what? I'm gonna do this last one too. I'm gonna do one more after this one. What do y'all think about Big Oscar's NFL potential? They've asked me this before. I don't know. I think he's going to need a little bit more production, personally, to really like knock on that door. Um, I don't know. We'll have to see what the season looks like. I think him slimming down and trying to, you know, do better with his body is going to help, because I think mobility at the tight end position you're just going to have at the NFL level. You're going to have to be able to move. You're going to have to beat a safety one-on-one, and you have to do that consistently. And you also have to block. So I think some of the changes that he's made coming into this season is good, but we'll just have to see. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm similar. You know, on the weight issue, I don't think it's just the catch and the passing game, right? That
Right.
it has an impact on. There were a lot of plays last year where he was lined up as an H back and he just could not get across the backfield in time to
Mm.
pick up his block.
Mm.
And there were a lot of busted plays last year because of that. So I think that stuff really stuck out in his film for the NFL scouts. So I hope he can get down to the 255, 260 range, something like that, and just get back to that level of athleticism that we've seen from him in the past. I think it's gonna be an uphill battle for him to get drafted for sure.
Yeah.
But I do think that, you know, if he gets to the right weight and he gets some of his quickness back, that he could probably be a guy that goes undrafted, but, you know, finds some opportunity at the next level. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think? I have a theory that Kavorian Barnes last year did not, in my opinion, he did not perform as good as he did the year prior. I think a lot of it had to do with, I think he gained too much weight. And I'm not saying it was bad weight, but I just think in general, they probably they probably told him in the offseason, hey, we're going to give you the ball 25 times or something. Like, you need to be able to grow into your body and be able to withstand that. But I thought he lost his breakaway speed. I thought he lost his wiggle in the pocket, once he got to the second level. And I think we really seen him not be as dynamic and as a big time playmaker as he was in that first year. Do you share that, or?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's good to hear you say that because I didn't hear any other people voice that sentiment.
Yeah.
There were so many plays last year where it's like, man,
Right.
Kavorian from last year would have took it to the house, right? Just like
100%.
that one step can make such a big difference to an offense. But I think it made sense for them to have him bulk up, and because he was going to be running back number one. But I think now with the stable they have, they can afford for him to slim down and have a little less
100%.
carries per game, right?
Right.
So yeah, we'll see what he comes in as that. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. I understand why they did it, but I think this offense has the stable of running backs needed to not have a guy that they have to depend on for 35 carries a game.
Yeah, 100%. Well, I'll wrap up there. Sorry, guys, you didn't get your if you didn't get your questions answered. There's a ton in here.
Yeah, just tweet it at us, right?
You say what?
Just tweet it at us. We'll get you on Twitter.
Yeah. There you go. Tweet it at us. We'll get you on Twitter. Hey, man, I appreciate you for doing this. I'm trying to be more diverse with who I bring onto the show. So we hope to see you on the show again sometime closer to the season, or maybe during the season if you have time. I know you guys are busy on your platform doing your thing. And shout out to you guys for doing that. Alamo Audible. You can find Jared and his team's content, and obviously at Jared UTSA is him on Twitter. So I will see you guys probably next week. I think I'm going to go back to Wednesday next week. I'll probably have a little bit more content come out this week, but it's going to be pre-recorded. But I appreciate everybody tuning in and participating. I will catch you guys on Twitter. Peace.